Good morning. My name is Savannah Bacciarelli, and I'm an English-Italian student at the American School of Milan. In around a month and a half, I'll be leaving school to go on summer break. Currently, that implies that I will be going on break to take a break and relax. However, that was not always the case. As myth implies, students used to have to take time off school to go and work on the farm. Whether or not that myth is true is debatable. However, one thing is for sure. With new innovations in technology, such excessive labor can be avoided. The topic for today is circular agriculture. I had only ever heard the term circular in terms of economy, and that is because circular agriculture is only being done in the Netherlands. It is using biomass and reusing it in the most effective way possible. It is a model of farming that is the most efficient, and it should be expanded to the whole world. Currently, there are 7.7 billion people on this planet, and the numbers are only growing. We need to find the most effective ways to grow the food for the growing populations while still maintaining the environment. So I leave you today by please asking you to help me and all the people younger than me to find the best ways to grow food while still protecting the environment to help us have a promising future. Thank you.
De Nederlandse landbouw is wereldwijd bekend. Onze boeren, tuinders en vissers zorgen dagelijks voor ons voedsel van hoge kwaliteit. Er wordt geproduceerd tegen zo laag mogelijke kosten. Maar er zijn ook nieuwe uitdagingen. Klimaat, duurzaamheid, natuur. Ik heb de afgelopen periode veel gesproken met boeren, tuinders, vissers. En zij vroegen allemaal aan mij, geef ons richting. Hoe ziet de landbouw van de toekomst eruit? Wat zijn de zaken waar we ons op moeten richten? Ik geloof dat de toekomst van de landbouw kringlooplandbouw is. Bij kringlooplandbouw gaat het niet om het produceren tegen zo laag mogelijke kosten, maar produceren met zo min mogelijk grondstoffen. En als er grondstoffen over zijn, dan heeft het waarde, dan gebruiken we ze weer. Kringlooplandbouw is ook goed voor de bodem. De bodem is de schatkamer van ons voedsel. En wat goed is voor de bodem, is ook goed voor de planten, de dieren die op die bodem leven. En daarmee brengen we landbouw en natuur ook meer in balans. Dit gaat niet alleen over onze boeren. Dit gaat ook over de consument. Over de waardering die wij hebben voor ons voedsel. En de waardering voor degenen die dat voedsel produceren. Maar ook over de prijs die we bereid zijn te betalen voor dat voedsel. Nederland is wereldwijd koploper in landbouw. En het is mijn ambitie dat we dat blijven via kringlooplandbouw. Ik zie ernaar uit om daar samen aan te gaan werken.
Good day, welcome everybody. Good to see you all here today, and it's a great introduction to be speaking after our inspiring Minister of Agriculture, Ms. Carola Schouten, who was here last year with us. I'm Victoria de Bourbon Parma, and I'm a big fan of Seeds and Chips, and I'm really happy to be a part of it this year again. Last year was the first time that the Dutch Embassy and the Consulate of the Netherlands had a presence at Seeds and Chips, and there were many startups who were showcasing their new business ideas, while in a room like this, I was busy involved with setting up a program called the Farmers of the Future. There we were talking about what type of farmer does it take to feed the world in the future? And how can we make sure that farming stays a healthy living and makes business sense? And so we had farmers from all around the world visiting us and talking to us about their experience and their future visions. They came from Bolivia, Honduras, Sudan, India. And we did that in collaboration with the FAO and with IFAD. And one of our keynote speakers who engaged with the farmers on stage was our Minister of Agriculture. And also the other keynote speaker was the president of IFAD, President Gilbert Hungbo. And there we were talking about the farmers, the person behind our food. And today we're taking it a step further. Today we'll be talking about the farming of the future, about circular agriculture, which has the potential to feed the world, enhance biodiversity, eliminate food loss and waste, and make sure that we can feed everybody on this planet with less input than we do at the moment. Seeds and Chips, I think, I feel always very energized and welcome when I'm here. I used to live for 4 years in Rome, so Italy feels like a little bit of a second home. And I think Seeds and Chips is a great platform for bringing together a very refreshing mix of people from different backgrounds, with all having that same future vision. And that's what we wanted to inspire for today. We have a very interesting list of speakers for you who will talk from their expertise, from policy, from research, from farmers' organizations, from businesses, from startups, innovators. You can already see some of the businesses around. Just have a look and read some of the posters that are around. We'll also talk about the crossovers between art and food. And we even have a shaman who will guide us into the links between our holistical experience with nature and with the food we eat every day, and how we can cause collectively for a food transformation. So I invite you all to participate today. We'll have speeches, but we'll have about 3 panels reflecting on the speeches. And please raise your hand, engage, give statements, ask questions, and be involved. Because if we want to change the world, and if we want to make sure that we live in a circular economy and in a circular world, it goes from farming to consumers, and so to everybody here in the room. So be engaged and be inspired. And I leave the floor now to the Dutch ambassador to Italy, Mr. Joost Flamand.
Well, I'll be very brief. Just a short word of welcome to you all at this event organized by Inter Alia, the Netherlands Embassy in Rome, and the Consulate General in Milan. Inspired, I think, is the word of today. Thanking Savannah for her inspiring words to begin with. It reminds me of my own children. We're working for the future. We're working in a reference to the Sustainable Development Goals. They show the way also for us as an embassy. They help us focus in our activities. Of course, as an embassy, we look at the bilateral relations, at improving the Dutch-Italian ties in this context, in particular on the circular agriculture. I'll be brief. You are all waiting eagerly for the panel to start and the discussion to start. Let me just remind you that on the other side of this compound, there's a Dutch pavilion eagerly awaiting your presence afterwards. Thank you very much.
Grabbing the right microphone. Thank you very much, Joost. Thank you, Victoria, and thank you also, Savannah, for this introduction. You saw already in this short film what my minister thinks why circular agriculture is needed. And I've been asked to give you a brief political context before Martin Schouten of Wageningen University will further elaborate on the content size in terms of agriculture, what circular agriculture actually means. But I would like to say a few words about the Dutch government approach and the political context in which this was presented 2 years ago when this new government came into office. Carola Schouten is part of a coalition of 4 political parties, Christian Democrats, liberals of 2 kinds, the more conservative Liberal Party and the more liberal Liberal Party, and then, of course, to her own Christian Union Party. She is of a smaller denomination, but she also, of course, is the deputy prime minister within this government. And when she started, she came to the ministry and she asked her staff to say, okay, what are we going to do in terms of relaunching and getting a new balance with nature? Because as we all know, and we see the SDGs mentioned here, there is a lot at stake here on our planet. has to be found a new balance between nature and agriculture. Yesterday's report of the IPBES about the loss of biodiversity was another reminder of indeed what is at stake if we do not get a new balance between what we take from the earth and what we give back to the earth, and hence the whole idea of circularity. Now, this wasn't something that she could sell very easily within her coalition partners and within the government. She had to make a convincing story. Because if you want to achieve a better balance between nature and agriculture, and you put far more emphasis on restoring environmental values, having better water quality, for example, or do something against soil degradation, you have to think at the same time about the impact that policy has on farmers. To give you one example, if we are putting a ban on certain poisons that the beetroot farmers are using in the Netherlands, that will have positive effects probably on the soil, but it will lead to a production of sugar beet roots to a far less yields than so far we have seen. So if you have a reduction of about 20%, it will make you, in yield, it will make you far less competitive in that market. Especially if, for example, in Poland or in other countries around the European Union, the same poisons are still allowed. So these pesticides, are we going to ban them? And what are the effects indeed on our production? The Dutch minister has made her choice. She wants to steer towards that better nature balance, and she definitely wants to guide us to that vision in which we make better use of all the raw materials that are left after production has taken place. But at the same time, and that's something that I would like to emphasize here, and that was why it's still also sometimes a political difficult way forward, is how do we protect the income of the farmers? Because if we are asking a lot of our farmers, if we really want them to farm in another way, then we have to make sure that they can make a sustainable living as well. Over the last decades, we have seen that the income of the farmers has relatively dropped compared to other trades in the economy. In other positions in the economy, you could make a far better living than in farming. The return on the capital, on the equity that farmers have invested is relatively very low. So the question is, how can we make a better balance also for our farmers? This is something that indeed Carola Schouten has very much on her mind. So she has also asked us, what can we do, for example, to deal with unfair trading practices that take place within the agricultural and food production? How can we make sure that indeed the farmers do not only get a small part of the total revenues that come in the end when the consumers pay the end price in the retail, but that their share in the total revenue is becoming bigger. So this is something that she very much wants to pursue as well. And hence she has asked us also to come up with new ideas. For example, a new fund to help young farmers to take over their parents' farm, so that they have better conditions when they are talking to the bank to get a loan. There is a lot that we can do here. We also have to look into certain aspects of competition law, even at a European level, to allow farmers to have better forms of cooperation. Because if we do not strengthen their competitiveness and their purchasing power in the markets, they will still be on the short end of the division of the revenues. So there is a lot at stake. It has to be done in a better balance, economic balance, and in a better ecological balance if we want to make the circular economy and the circular agriculture into a success. If we don't, then we will certainly fail, to all the detriment of all the big issues at stake. It's about fighting hunger. It's about the future of our planet in general, on all its aspects I've seen in the introductory film. So there is a lot at stake that we want to do it. This transition in the Netherlands comes also at a time that we are reviewing our common agricultural policy in the European Union. From the times of Sikkel-Mansholt in the 1960s and 70s, where we increased production all the time, we gradually modified the common agricultural policy in a support system for incomes to farmers. But now we have to reschedule and rechange that system again. And we have to make sure that the subsidies goes to those targeted goals and objectives that we really want to achieve. For example, in terms of reducing pesticides, better water quality, making sure that minerals are reused again. All these important aspects have to be put in place. So these are a few of the elements that I would like to give you as a sort of political context why this policy change came abroad. We have translated this vision document of our minister in English, and there are booklets here available. So if you want to take one, they're on the table in the back. And we've also a summary in Italian. So if you want to read more about it, you can find it in the booklet, read it in the summary, and I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Savannah, for inspiring us, giving the question, why is the Netherlands going into circular agriculture? And is it only for the Netherlands? I'm not sure. I think it's for the whole world. Let me see if the technology is working. The slides, please. The Netherlands is seen as a showcase in the world when it comes to agro-food production, agro-food business. September 2017, there was a 30-pager in the National Geographic explaining why this tiny country is feeding the world. Actually, that is not really true. It's only 2% of the food production in the world. But for such a small country, that's amazing. And when you look upon that, then it's about smart farmers, that finding the good ways in technology and in science to produce very efficient. Why then is that showcase moving towards circular agriculture? There must be a reason. Well, I think the reason is on the blocks here in this stage. It is about the challenges that the Sustainable Development Goals gives us. How can we address those Sustainable Development Goals in this century? And especially, how can the new generation come to these challenges? And when it comes to food, we know one challenge for many years, and that is food security, food for all. And actually, all what we did over the last 70 years was to produce enough food. By expanding the production capacity, but also by improving the production efficiency, we call that the Green Revolution. It brought a lot of good, it brought a lot of food, but it also brought a lot of pressure on Earth. How that can be, because the production efficiency is part of it. Well, that's an efficiency from a perspective of the final end product, which is a commodity. And we are leaving so much behind. We are wasting actually so much of very good quality biomass that the Earth produces in the agriculture that we cannot sustain that much longer. Sorry. Better place in the... Now we come with a circular agriculture to a second point, a global challenge, and that is resource security. Actually, we only have one planet, and the planet has the carrying capacity to produce biomass, and we can produce food from biomass. But how can we improve that? How can we make sure that we use all the resources in a very smart way that the planet gives? And that's the resource efficiency. And we can learn from nature, because the natural ecosystem is based on resource efficiency by adaptation to the local conditions and by diversity in its production. So that's the main message I want to give you to understand the circular agriculture in the Netherlands. Actually, it's working from the planet to fill the 7.7 billion, and it will be more plates on Earth. To make it more simple, the rules of the circular agriculture is to use the resources as efficient as possible, as broad as possible, to avoid any waste in your agro production system by using the residual flows of biomass that we are now not using and make a use of it, preferably within the food system, so that we can also make food of the biomass that we are now wasting. And if we can do that, we can really produce within the planetary boundaries, within the carrying capacity of the planet. That means that we have to look to our resources, to circular fertilizers for our plant growth rather than industrial-made fertilizers. To use circular feed to feed our animals rather than special produced feeds. And to use circular food to feed ourselves. Within other challenges, the environment benefits of biodiversity and a reduced carbon footprint, of course, and within the conditions of sustainability, animal welfare, and One Health. And to realize that we have to be unbounded smart in our thinking. Circularity needs a connection between the food or the production chains that we have in the present agriculture, but also connection with the rest of the society, with connection with the nature, connection with the institutions that we have, connection with the planetary boundaries. And we have to find the right scale, the proper scale, to come to this kind of resource use efficiency, resource security. It's not on the square meter. It is looking around where can you find the connections. The more diverse our agro-food system is, the more you can connect, the more efficient you can be, the more sustainable you can be, and the more robust and resilient you can be. So find the right scope and the proper scale. And agriculture is not single in the world. Agriculture is there, and we can make the agriculture circular, but agriculture is part of a bio-based society. And Savannah, yeah, you're right, and especially here in north of Italy, I always heard about circular economy, and that is making products out of biomass. But if that is biomass that is separately produced from the food production, then we make it even worse. Then we need more biomass, and if we do that not in a proper way, and we are wasting, then it cannot be within the planetary boundaries. So we have to connect the agriculture with the bio-based economy, or the other way around. We have to connect the bio-based economy with the agriculture. And then on the other side, we have the sea. 70% of the world is sea. 90% of the biomass is sea. Only 7% of the biomass that we are using as mankind comes from the sea. So there is a world to win. We have the problems of overfishing and polluting aquacultures. That's strange. That's stupid. That can we do better? So we really think that circularity, and within the Sustainable Development Goals, it is number 12, connecting the consumption with the production in a circular, infinite circular way. It is a little bit hidden from your perspective, but there is a block there. It should be up front here. But if we do that, we have to secure that we do that in a safe way, that we are not pumping toxicants, pathogens around in the environment. So we have to come up with a smart design of circularity in the food production. So bring it to a summary. The food production in an circular agro-food system is nature-based. It is based on ecological processes of efficiency, adaptation, and diversity. But to be so smart, we need really the precision technology. Precision technology can help us to make a more nature-based food production. Farming with nature requires a very smart way of working, and the precision technology really can help in that. That's the other way around from the past. In the past, the technology was steering the agriculture. Now, technology should help the agriculture, support the agriculture. The technology was big and strong in the past. The technology will be precision technology in the future. And there should be an incredible, credible and sound business model. I have to say business models behind it. Why is the Netherlands so big? Because of the hidden, the secret of the agro-food success of the agro-food production in the Netherlands is a distinguished quality in a relevant volume with supreme logistics for an orderly price. Well, actually, if you're using resources in a broader way, and you're using lower value resources, it helps you to a lower cost price. If you can bring food with a good narrative, good for the earth, to the market, it can come with a higher price of appreciation. The quality is very important in that, but quality more in terms also of what is the story behind the food. And I see the young generation, my students, really are interested to make food a business on the basis of this kind of principles. I finish up with the connection, the Netherlands and Italy. And this part of Italy, it's of course the dairy. I'm often here in the Cremona Fiera to speak about innovation, circularity. Milk is, Ban Ki-moon said it in Korea last year, milk is the perfection. Milk is a nutritious food for the future. Yeah, but the cows. Yeah, because of the cows. The cows are champion in circularity. The cows are champions in circularity because they can handle feedstocks, biomass, that we cannot produce food from. And they are doing it for us because of the microbes in the rumen of the cow and the sheep. Secondly, they're producing high nutritious food. But they're also producing manure. And you know, manure is the best fertilizer you can, cow manure is the best fertilizer you can think of. Not in a slurry, but if you harvest the manure in a proper way in the stable, very first, separation of the urine and the feces, then you come up with an organic fertilizer, a compost fertilizer, which is the best you can think of for plants. And in the final end, then you need a cow, and you need probably a better cow than the cow that was so successful nowadays. A cow that can handle a broader spectrum of feed and produce very good manure, and is more adapted and resilient to the situation it's offered by nature. So I want to finish my explanation about the science and the reasoning behind our circular agriculture with our statement of Wageningen to explore the potential of nature to improve the quality of life, and we have to find answers together. Scientists cannot do it alone, farmers cannot do it alone. We have to do it together. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's very good to be here, and thank you, Martin, for making this easy bridge for me, because I'm going to... Oh, the first slide is... Oh yeah, there he is. I'm going to tell you about not the green revolution, but the re-green revolution, which is really making use of the nature-based solutions that are available in trying to solve a huge problem that we're facing today, and that is worldwide land degradation. If you look at this map, you see that there is about 2 billion hectares of land degraded in the world. All the yellow, orange, and red parts are degraded land. You see there is severe pressure also in the USA, in Asia, but when you look at Africa, there is only the green heart left of Africa, but the gray parts are desert, but you see there's huge land that is severely degraded, and we have to face that and see what the results are, because this degraded land is resulting in big climate issues, food insecurity, leading to poverty worldwide, causing a lot of insecurity for many people living, especially in Africa. That's where I'm going to tell you more about. We took up this severe challenge as an opportunity, because we know that 37% of nature-based solution can help to mitigate climate change in 2030. That means that if we are able to restore degraded land, there is a big solution we can offer, and fortunately it can't be an accident, a coincidence. The UN declared last April the next decade of 2020 to 2030 as the decade of ecosystem restoration. So we are really looking into options now, how we can scale up landscape restoration in Africa. That's what Just Dig It, the organization I'm working for, is doing with partners locally. But what we think is even more important is getting together all the partners to put landscape restoration on the political agenda, on the international agenda, on the national agenda, and also on the local agenda. Involve as many partners as can be possible to work on degraded lands, ultimately resulting in inspiring and activating 350 million subsistence farmers to start regreening their land by themselves. Now, before I dive more into this and invite you all to become part of this regreen revolution, I want to show you a short film that gives a little bit of insights about our work.
If we can warm up the earth, we can also cool it down. Together with local partners in Kenya, we have dug 72,000 water bunds so that rainwater can enter the ground, making dry land green again. We've also designed and implemented a few grass seed banks. The results are mind-blowing. More biodiversity, more income, more food, and a cooler land. And all of this in just a few years' time. Our method works. Time to step up and scale up. Next stop, Tanzania. Here we're visiting villages in rural areas with a movie roadshow, triggering entire communities to take action. Together with Lead Foundation, we are educating and activating over 100,000 farmers to restore degraded land by themselves. To raise awareness and to create a grassroots movement, we run sponsored advertising and media campaigns throughout the country.
Tembea tovuti ya justdigit.org/Tanzania.
Everyone is in. Farmers, local authorities, religious leaders, celebrities and artists, from international media partners to local NGOs and communities. Together we are creating a landscape restoration movement. Recently we developed an innovative mobile app. Via this app, farmers get paid for restoring their land by people around the world who want to fund landscape restoration. So now the entire world can support us with the click of a button. But there's more, because there's no movement without rhythm. In 2020, we will introduce rain dance concerts. To empower farmers and to bring our story to the world, global and local artists will perform at Africa's most iconic landmarks, but especially in the rural areas that can be restored. From Tanzania to Morocco, and from Kenya to South Africa. Currently, we're developing a restoration blueprint that can easily be tailored to each AFR 100 country. This blueprint includes our learnings on how to inspire, educate, and activate local farmers to restore their land, and how to build a grassroots movement. So, dear partners of AFR 100, If you want to bring 100 million hectares into restoration by 2030, and we only have 12 years to go, we need to act swiftly, decisively, and above all, together. So let's scale up, and let's get this movement started. Cooling down the planet. Just dig it.
Yeah, this gives a little bit of an idea of how we are working. You can see one of the flagship programs. We're working in Kenya and Tanzania. And also in the film, you hear about the AFR 100, which is the African Forest Landscape Restoration Initiative that was established in 2015 by the African Union, with combining the efforts of 29 African countries in pledging landscape restoration in their countries. So they committed to restore over 100 million of hectares of land by 2030, which is an incredible amount and which will give farmers a lot of income security and reduce climate change, hopefully. But how are we going to do that? Because there are a lot of effort is needed to do that. So before I want to explain a bit more about the movement we're starting, I want to show you a little bit more about our program in Tanzania. That's the Regreening Dodoma program, in where we work in an area about the same size as Holland. You can see it there in the middle. We work in 7 districts there, and our aim is, together with 200,000 farmers and their families, impacting about 1 million of people in that region, in 5 years, bringing back 14 million trees in their farms. Because all the trees disappeared over the past 50 years, but the stumps are still there. So there is a way of bringing back those trees. It's called farmer-managed natural regeneration, which is one of the very effective ways of regreening land and make dry land green again and suitable for farming. A good result of this is that it retains billions liters of water. It recovers the short water cycle. It's of course, when there are more trees, it also has a cooling effect. It gets large amounts of CO2 out of the air. And by doing that, we empower the communities to get back their more income, have their yields. You see their yields growing immediately. So it is a very effective way of bringing back into the economy the millions of farmers living there. How do we do that? We train in every village we work. In that region, there are about 600 villages, and we are active in 300 of them. We train 4 what we called our champion farmers in the village. And they learn with a very easy technique to prune the trees so that they can bring back, to prune all the sprouts that are coming from the tree stumps. And by that, you can bring back easily the growth of a tree in a few years' time. So within 3 to 5 years' time, an acacia is about a height of 3 to 4 meters again. Here you can see the women working on it. And here you see all our champion farmers. There are over 1,300 with certificates. And that means that in every village we have over 4 champion farmers that can pass on the knowledge in the farmers in the village. Well, it seems as a good idea, and it works well, but the actually adoption rate of the other farmers in the village was not that high. It was about 5% after the training, after they went back into the field. So together with our local partner, Lead Foundation, we thought this should be better. So what can we do, and how can we really inspire and activate the farmers? And we came up with the idea of showing them, it was of course not possible to take all the farmers to farms where they're already practicing FMNR, but we made a movie. And we showed a movie roadshow. Here you can see, it's a little movie. I will show you short pieces of it, of a farmer who comes from the neighborhood and who visits another farmer that is practicing FMNR about 7 years already. Just to give you a little bit insight of how the movie looks like. It's just a few seconds.
Kwa jina mimi naitwa Ashe Balagui Mahona ni mkazi wa kata ya Mazai. Naishi kitongoji cha Busere A. Pia nimeoa na mke na watoto wawili. Na nina shamba lenye ukubwa wa ekari 6. Shughuli zangu za kilimo, nalima mazao yafuatayo. Nalima mtama, karanga na mahindi. Huwa nakutana na changamoto nyingi, ikiwemo ardhi kukosa rutuba.
This just gives an indication of all the farmers, how they're living. And then, of course, it's about a 40 minutes movie. I won't bother you with the whole story, but it really takes them into the ways of looking in a new way at their farming. And then it ends, if it comes, the film ends with this and shows the possibility that they can work too.
Kwenda wela anga ulichuka. Jinsi zono halelewae. Zono hena chijani chipendeze. Waetu wenewe na mlungu wao. Kwanza nengena waewo.
So what you see here is the different trees that are combined with farming, agroforestry, which works very well in this to bring back fertile farmland. And so we thought, when this is such a success, when we turn, because after a year, we went, of course, we do a lot of research in this region. We found that over 40% of the farmers was adopting these techniques. So that's an incredible increase. And we thought, how can we involve our whole network and all the communication power we have to reach, in fact, every farmer, every subsistence farmer, to inform him or her that they can start regreening themselves. So we have a very strong media and communication network. We already do a lot of completely sponsored campaigns in the Netherlands. And we are lucky to have Havas, partners as Havas and JC Deco as our partners, who totally sponsor our campaigns and offered their network in Africa. They are present in 24 different African countries to involve their network also to put up the same media and communication campaign in those countries. So together with them and supported by, well, you see just a few of the partners, we really think that we can use the power of communication to start. You see a little example here, to start informing farmers, empowering them, inspiring them and activating them to start regreening themselves. Because we think from project to project is of course a super way, but it is not efficient, it's not cost efficient. And we finally hope to go into what we call contactless regreening, so that every farmer, wherever he or she lives, is able to start regreening themselves. Here you see all the different parts all the different partners that together form the Regreen Revolution.
I believe we can...
To finish this presentation with a little message of our patron, Desmond Tutu, who supports us from the beginning, and we are very proud to have him with Just Dig It. So I want to finalize my presentation with his words.
We can save the world with a shovel. No, I'm not a crazy old fool. I'm Desmond Tutu, and I know we can reverse climate change. Just dig it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marjolein, for this inspiring story. My name is Geert Wilms. I'm from the Netherlands, so we go back from Africa, we go back to the Netherlands again. I'm from a public-private partnership. That's a partnership between the province North Brabant, that's a region in the south of the Netherlands, and a farmers organization. I will tell you something about the context we're working in, and 4 examples I will show to you. The goal of the partnership is to contribute to a more sustainable agriculture in the region, and that means eco-efficient, as we heard before, and also more circularity in the system. Also, a big thing in the Netherlands is that we have to get agriculture again with his face to society and not with his back to society. So new connections with society again, and that means with art and design and culture and stuff like that. The context. Here you see Europe by night, and here, for example, we are now in Milano, and this is Madrid, and we're working right in that circle. So it's pretty crowded in the circle we're working in, and that's the province Noord-Brabant. The province Noord-Brabant, we have about 5,000 square kilometers and 2.5 million inhabitants. But in Brabant, we also have more than 500,000 cows and 6 million pigs and 26 million chickens. So it's crowded and very dense. That's also a benefit because you have, say, we're in a crowded area with lots of consumers, but also it's a challenge. The same picture as Wageningen University showed. Noord-Brabant is somewhere around 1/5 of the Netherlands, so economically, agriculture and agro-food is very important too. On the other hand of the partnership, we have the farmers' organization in the south, and that's the ZLTO. We have 3 farmers' organizations in the Netherlands, and this is one in the south, and they have around 14,000 members. The broader perspective, the vision of the farmers' organization is that farmers are not only producers of food, but they also produce water, care, livelihood, innovation, experience, and other things. So it's a new perspective for farmers and farming in the Netherlands, and especially in Noord-Brabant. The approach of the say the LIP approach, as we call it, agriculture innovation in Brabant, is a small wins approach. So we start with small projects, and they grow, bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, even thousands of farms can be involved in the projects. We have a small financial budget, about €500,000 a year, and we support 35 projects each year. And we are now working already for 24 years, so we have a portfolio of 800 projects that we supported the last 24 years. We also share a lot of knowledge. We have, of course, connections with Wageningen University. We also have a University of Applied Sciences, and we have also ZLTO herself, and the province has lots of knowledge. Also, we have a good network. We have a board. The chairman of ZLTO is also the chairman of the public-private partnership, and the vice governor is also the vice president of the partnership. What's also important, and we saw that in Kenya too, only around 2% of the farmers are really innovative farmers, and so they are going another direction as the large group of farmers. And these farmers, they need also moral support. And especially if you go another direction, you need the clap on your shoulder, and some support is needed. Also, it's important to support projects for a longer time, because it takes at least 10 years for innovative projects to be, viable, even if they are successful. The international collaboration, that's also part of our network. We are working in different EU projects, and especially the region Emilia-Romagna. We're working with them since 5 years now, and we're working in different projects. And we also have, we signed a letter of intent 2 years ago to work even closer together, because sharing knowledge is very important. Now I have some 4 different, initiatives that I will tell something about, and these are 4 of the 800 we supported the last 24 years. So it's only a few of them. This is an initiative of on farm level. That's a farmer. That's Joris Buijs. He's in the west of the province of Noord-Brabant. And he started with circularity 15 years ago. And that means that 15 years ago, he had a vision. I want to have more balance between livestock, manure, crops, and land. So he invested in land and not in more cows. And that's why he's now sort of in balance between those four elements of the circularity. And here you see Joris at work and the things that are important for him. And here you see the soil. On the bottom is the soil that's important. That's the base for everything. And also the crop is important on the left. And the cows, of course, and the manure. And all is now in balance. And a special thing that's very wordful to him is continuity, to give the farm to the next generation. And there you see in the middle, his son is already practicing as farmer. This is another example. This is in pig husbandry of the Smits group. That's in the east part of Noord-Brabant, of the province. This is a local initiative say they have 100,000 pigs in their business, but they also have arable farming, more than 500 hectares. And they combine that with using, say, out-of-date food, out-of-date of that not meets the qualities for human consumption as feed for the pigs. And you also have a biogas company. And here you see the circle that they are, it's not working, but from the right above in the food industry, say the waste processing from the food industry is used for animal feed or used for biomass in the biofermentation factory. And the animal feed is used for the pig farming, and the manure from the pig farming is also used in the biogas plant. And they have for 10,000 households, they produce energy in that plant. And also, this is now because of the biogas industry in between, it's now in balance, the amount of arable farming they have with the pigs they have. And another example is a brewer, that's Bavaria, that's working together with farmers. Bavaria used to have 1.5 million cubic meters of wastewater, and they are now treating that. And that treated water is now used for farmers to irrigate their crops. Around 2,000 hectares are irrigated with that wastewater. And so that's better for Bavaria, because they don't have to pay to get rid of their wastewater, and it's better for the farmers, and of course better for the planet and society. This is the last example. That's a completely different example. That's a tree nursery product, and that's Laurus nobilis, and that's some plants even get 20 years old because before they are sold, and they have to be pruned every year. And in the middle you see a pruning machine, and so you have lots of pruning waste, and the entrepreneur is now starting to get the ingredients from the pruning waste to make oil, soaps, and other products for the pharmaceutical industry. And that's working quite well. And you see him on the left side. He is there on the Dutch Design Week to show his products to the public. And also, that is the former minister, I think, of healthcare, visited him at the Dutch Design Week. So that's, that is pretty successful now. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to start with our first panel, and I'd like to invite onto the stage Martin, Aldrik, and Kees Roest. chair, big chair. In case, I'll quickly introduce you. You work for the Research Center for Animal Production. You're the head of the Department for Agricultural Economics, and you live in Italy, live and work in Italy. So you can, I think I'll start with you for the first question, as we haven't heard from you before, and I'd like to include a bit more of the Italian perspective on things. Can you tell me about some examples of circularity that you've come across in farming here in Italy?
Well, yes. I'm working in the Research Center for Animal Production in Reggio Emilia, in the region Emilia-Romagna, since '83. And as circularity is concerned, as a research center, we are specialized, of course, on animal production. We are carrying out several types of research projects concerning circularity, like, for example, operational groups with farmers together on the topic of conservation agriculture. One of the problems in the Po Valley in Emilia-Romagna is the low content of organic matter. And the focus of these projects concerning conservation agriculture is to have cover crops, which are covering the field all over the year, and to seed on sods directly without plowing. So that's an innovation which is also being stimulated by policy. The rural development plans of Lombardia, Veneto, and Emilia-Romagna, they are granting also subsidies for farmers to change over to this type of new farming without plowing, so without tillage, which is quite a challenge. And which is focusing on a higher carbon sequestration on the soils, and that's an example on which we're working. We have several other examples, of course. Another example is one on biogas plants. Italy is the second country in the world, in Europe, in terms of numbers of biogas plants, 1,500 biogas plants. With the consortium of Biogas Italy, the concept has been developed of biogas done right, in the sense that it's not right to use directly crops to produce feed for the biogas plants, but to use byproducts primarily.
And how are the logistics being maneuvered? How are the logistics being maneuvered to make that possible? That all these chains are being connected?
Well, contracts with local companies are stipulated with farmers who use byproducts. And of course, the main is the manure of the farm, because they're animal production farms. So of course, and another point which is important in this biogas done right concept is to optimize the use of the digestate, which is coming out of the biogas plant, as best as possible, composting it, or by microfiltration, for example, to substitute in this way fertilizer by means of the use of optimized digestate.
Okay.
So it's just a few examples.
Yeah, very interesting. We've been, I think this morning we've been very raving and enthusiastic about Netherlands and the role of the Dutch agriculture. If I take a step back, it wasn't too long ago that the Netherlands suffered from a very, very big famine. Actually, a lot of the research during my work in Save the Children, when you look at the prosperity of children and the nutrients that they use, and the fact that if you don't get enough nutrients when you're young, that impovers your entire life, comes from that time period. And actually, within one generation, we've been able to turn that around. And I'd like to go to Martin to ask him, now we see, as Marjolein has said, 350 million subsistence farmers in Africa who'd like to improve their yield, who'd also like to move forward. Do they already, I guess they already use a type of circularity. What can circular agriculture mean for them, and what type of technologies do they need to move forward?
Yeah, I think it's very important also the initiative of Just Dig It to raise awareness that you have to stay close to your nature and not fall in the trap of thinking that big technologies that works in other places in the world will really help you on the long term. So learn from our lessons, and for that I'm very happy that the extensionalists and the consultants that are going to Africa now going with a narrative like green revolution. I really like that term because that is so what it's all about. If your soil management is right and if you really use all your biomass from your land. Let me give you one example. Let me give you one example from Ethiopia, where I'm very proud of. Actually, I was there in Ethiopia. I saw the local breed of cows producing 2 liters of milk. That's not that much. They were fed by the residuals of the crops from the small acre that was close to it. Was also the property of the small farmer. And normally we would say, yeah, but it's because your feed is not good. The quality is so bad, we can learn you to come with processed super feed. And the cow, it's not a super breed, it's an Ethiopian cow, and you don't, what can you expect? But we turned it around in what is his resource, and that was crop waste. And what we did was to use the knowledge of mushroom production in the Netherlands to grow mushrooms on the waste. The mushrooms degraded the waste into a high nutritious feed. We gave that to the cows, and the cows produced 20 liters of milk per day, just as a Dutch cow in the Netherlands is producing. From the natural resource that is available there with a local breed. And when I compare that with the Dutch cows that were also in Ethiopia, I saw that they were really suffering from the climate.
So really co-creating
the solution is very close by in the nature, because the nature has the adaptation. The cow breed in Ethiopia is not for nothing that cow breed. It is adapted to the Ethiopian conditions, and the crops grow there. And we have to find that way. And it's so important that we realize from Europe, from America, if we go there, that we keep them in circularity, because that's the basis, and not moving away from that as we did. We now have to work very hard, also in attitude and understanding, and we have to give a lot of learning to the professionals, long life learning, to get them back to circularity.
So to listen and to create.
And the other point is really the technology that you ask. Yeah, the fine, smart technologies, the little devices are very helpful. And actually, that means that in the rural areas, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, I have to say, it's very important to have a good logistics for infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, because then you can use your smart devices to farm, but also you can set up your small business models like Uber and all the other type of business models by selling your products directly on the market through e-commerce.
And to able to leapfrog technology.
And that keeps the young generation, we are concerned about the age of the farmers, but that keeps the young generation on the land. And in the cities, there is not enough land to produce enough food for all the people in the city. So we have to rebalance living in the cities and living in the rural areas again. And that's also a sustainable connection of production and consumption.
Thank you, thank you. I'd like to go to Aldrik. I'd like to go back to Europe now and talk about policy. You mentioned, of course, the big influence of European agricultural policy on every farmer in Europe. Is there any new policy that needs to be get in place on a European level, national level, If I think of circularity, I naturally also would already think of food waste that consumers are wasting, supermarkets are wasting, restaurants are wasting. And I know that around that, it's not always easy to be able to use that type of waste to get it back and be able to get the nutrients out of it. On a policy level, what would need to change?
I think there are several challenges, and for very good reasons, often related to food safety. We have forbidden certain practices that were part of our farming culture many decades ago. For example, all the animal rest products were forbidden after the BSE crisis, and that was for very good reasons, of course. But we perhaps have exaggerated certain aspects of our food safety policies, and based on new scientific insights, I think there is room for rethinking certain aspects of that piece of legislation. The same goes with the whole set of rules and regulations around pesticides and soil protection. I think indeed that needs to be revisited also at a European scale. This year we have European elections. A new commissioner will take office probably from October, November onwards. And that's a very good moment indeed to have a long-term planning on what we need to do to get our agricultural policies in Europe right again, so that we also
Will it be a Dutch commissioner, do you think?
I don't know. It depends very much on the elections, doesn't it? So we have to wait and see what comes out. First the elections, and then the formation of a new commission will follow suit.
Okay. Kees, you wanted to add to that?
Well, yes, I would like to add on the issue of policy, in the sense that the region of Emilia-Romagna, one of the 20 regions in Italy where we are working, as many other regions in Italy, has promoted a lot the instrument of operational groups. And it's interesting to know that the idea of the operational groups comes from the Netherlands and has been implemented now for many years now in Italy and in other regions in the rest of Europe. And the concept of the operational groups is that research and farmers together make an innovation plan to innovate and to work together, farmers and research and dialogue together, to implement innovations in terms of, for example, circular agriculture, but also other innovations, precision farming, for example. The advantage of the operational group is that the adoption rate of the new technologies then are much higher, because farmers are visiting, like the example has been shown also by Marjolein Albers in Africa. Also, we are organizing with these in these operational groups farm visits where the innovation is implemented, and farmers learning from farmers is the best way to spread innovation.
Thank you.
Instead of a top-down approach of saying we as researchers think you have to adopt this and this and this. So
thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? As I said, please get involved and engage. We're running a bit out of time, so yeah, I have a question. I'll bring a microphone to you. You have one. Great.
Hello, good morning. I'm just, if I can follow up on the comment about pesticides. You mentioned there was a need in to revisit European policy on pesticides. Could you explain that, please?
I think indeed we are constantly reviewing the impacts of certain pesticides on soil, on the environment, on water quality, but also the impact that it has on human health. And certain pesticides that are currently in use have been revisited as well by the various institutes within Europe, the ECHA and the EFSA, that are responsible for that. And it leads to indeed deeper insights, especially also about the combined effects that certain pesticides have on human health or on the health of animals or on the environment. Now, my minister has clearly said that she wants to have a complete revisiting of the pesticide policies that are currently in place, because there are too many signals that indeed the overall effects of pesticides do have impacts, especially on insects and bees. So in the framework of this European bee strategy, indeed, we probably have to get rid of the still intensive use of pesticides in the agricultural production. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to be here in Italy. And I would like to introduce myself first with the presentation, Growing a Better World Together. As working for Rabobank, I'm really proud to work for Rabobank because I have the roots in the agriculture. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I'm a project manager who is responsible for a certain kind of a project for create more a sustainable world because of a responsibility that Rabobank has in the food and agri industry. Growing a better world together, that means growing that we are in a transformation. We are in a transition of farming to a new decade, to a new green revolution, to a better world for the next generation, but together. We have, as a Rabobank, we are a network organization, so we work together with NGOs, with the government, and of course with our farmers to get to the new decade. The challenge what we have, let's first of all an introduction. And we are in a small room, so usually I do not share my PIN code, but nowadays I would like to do that. And just remember that today, I will show you the regions. Today we have 1 billion people in the Americas, 1 billion people in Europe, 1 billion in Africa, and 4 billion in Asia. And that was going to change in 2050. Then in Africa we have 2 billion, and in Asia we have 5 billion. And in Europe and in America it will stay the same. And if we take a look forward to 2100, even in Africa we have 4 billion people. And so for just a decade there's a lot of work to do. And for in Asia it also expands. As we see this picture, the arable land is not equally distributed. The world population is the outside circle. If you see that, we take a look at that, 60% of the people nowadays is living in Asia, while only 35% of the arable land is available over there. So that means they also depend on importing food, and also you see that they're going to invest in countries like in Africa for just getting food for security. While in Africa, there's a 15% is living over there from the total world population, while there's 15% of the arable land is there available. But of course, there's a lot of possibilities and challenges to increase the production, so to get in demand and equally for the people who are living over there. So there's a huge challenge for over there. As Rabobank, we defined 4 themes that we think that's most important for the next decade. And that's about nutrition, earth, waste, and stability. Nutrition, in one hand, we see that a lot of people are undernourished. We have not enough food. And on the other hand, we have people have food problems with obesity and causes diseases. So that's a dilemma. We have to go to more a healthy food from more animal protein to plant protein. So there are a lot of challenges over there. Earth, that's a theme where I'm really working on, is that we see that the agricultural land per capita has halved since 1960s. With a challenge for more a sustainable way of producing, but also in what we see in Africa, but also in the Netherlands, that the land has degraded with some about 30%. Combined with the climate issues, what we have of the greenhouse gases, we see that dilemma, and that has an impact on the forest and the biodiversity. Waste. 1/3 of the total production of food is wasted from production till the plate. So it takes the size of China to produce what we now waste on food. Stability means that the income varies a lot, and volatility in prices are that high, so the perspective of farmers to continue and also succession problems is going to be more an issue. And if you want to create more perspective, because we also depend, in the next 20 years, the number of people depending on one farmer doubles. So the production and the farmers, we have to be very careful. So they need a good loan, a good profit. And the risk and return are not equally developed. So you could say that nearly every player in the food chain turns in a healthy margin, but except for the farmer. And that is one most important thing, that the farmer gets a good income. So there are, in 2050, we have a lot of bridges to take. If it goes about the greenhouse gases, it goes about the available land for arable farming, for dairy farming, but also we need to have a sustainable feed production. Rabobank has a unique position. We are a food and agri bank with more than a market share with 85% in the Dutch market. Outside the Netherlands, we only focus on the food and agriculture, but we are a cooperative way of organization, and the idea behind it is also, together with the countries in developing countries, we can share our history, and just where we started with starting with farmers to get loans to the farmers to increase their production, is the same system what we do together with Rabobank Foundation in the African countries. So from yesterday till today, we have another lot of innovation within the history, and together with all the network companies what we are working with. So today we have a presence in more than 40 countries where we have food and agri research specialists working together with specifically researchers and universities, so we can have a look at what economic activities there are. Like I said, with a more than 85 market share, we have a responsibility with 98 billion outstanding in the food and agri market. We feel that responsibility enough. What I would like to share is what we do more specifically for our farmers, and to get a role in the circular agriculture. And that's the thing that what I'm working on, this one project. What I do is that we created a project together with Worldwide Fund and with the value chain with the dairy industry. And this is what we thought we made an idea that we created a biodiversity monitor. And a biodiversity monitor means that certain critical or key performance indicators we just selected, so that can help farmers to improve the biodiversity, but it also is a standard for a base to get reward for a farmer. So a bank can reward them, the farmers, with a discount on their interest rate to just getting them to move to a sustainable system. But also the Friesland Campina uses this as a standard for getting rewarded for a higher milk price. So this is a call for all provinces or other partners in the value chain, just to create a system for more a adaptive model, and that makes use of the natural capitals what we have in the way of farming. So this is helping us to a new business model for farmers to make a step forward to a circular agriculture. This is the way how Rabobank, and together with the partners, helps farmers to get to more a sustainable way of farming and to have a more perspective for the sector, for the new food production. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Charles Miller, and I'm very happy to be here today. I have to say I've worked in agriculture or been on a farm my entire life, and most of that has been outside of my home country, the US. And now my new home country is the Netherlands. I'm the commercial director for a potato breeding program, a company named Selinta. And I'm not going to bore you too much with some of the things that people have said before, but you know, the population is about 7 billion. It's growing to about 10 billion in the next 30 years. We have a huge challenge in front of us. But until recently, I didn't really understand what that challenge implied. This number on the screen is the number of people that today have died from malnutrition. And this number is going to be about 33,000 by the time we go to bed tonight. This is going to happen each and every day. And to me, that really drives home the point of what a company like Selinta needs to do for the future, and what we as a planet need to do. So we have a huge task in front of us. We have to produce more food, more nutritious food. We have to do it with less water and with less impact on our planet. When we think about some of the products that the world's typically producing, think about wheat. To produce 1 kilo of wheat costs us about 1,200 liters of water. To produce 1 kilo of potatoes, on the other hand, costs 200 liters of water. Potatoes are nutritious. They're a huge source of vitamin C. They're a good source of B6. They're a good source of iron. They're also a very good source of potassium. And potatoes, done correctly, can help us reduce the impact that pesticides have on the planet. Quoting from the FAO, potatoes are more nutritious food on less land, with less water, and in harsher climates than any other major food crop. But, probably didn't know this, potatoes don't have sex. And without sex, there's no new generations, there's no seeds. Without sex, there's no opportunity for plant breeders to improve and target improvements in potatoes. That's one of the things that Selinta set out to change. You know, to prove my point, the potato that's grown the most in North America, my home country, so I know this, is the russet Burbank. The russet Burbank potato was released in 1875, 150 years ago. With all the technology at our fingertips, with all the knowledge and learning that we've had in that 150 years, we have yet to produce a better potato. To me, it's amazing. Why? There are two major drawbacks for potatoes. There's what I call hodgepodge breeding. Basically, it comes down to the fact that they don't have sex. Secondly, there's a very bad starting material. Typically, potatoes are grown from remnant tubers that are left over from last year's harvest. Basically, They've been degraded genetically, they've been degraded by the weather, they've been degraded by their storage conditions. And every farmer knows that the key to success is good starting material. All right, so let's talk about genetics. Now, I've said that there's a hodgepodge of breeding and genetics. Well, if you wanted to do something simple, and that's produce a pink flowering potato that had very large tubers and 9 other valuable traits. Maybe they make good French fries, maybe they're drought resistant. It's a list of 11 traits, and really that's not very much. You would have to plant 131 quintillion plants. To do that, you would have to plant a landmass the size of 50 planet Earths. Okay, well that sounds like a problem, but the real problem would actually be for the people you'd have to hire to look at each one of those plants and tell you which one had the 11 traits you were looking for. But at Solenta, we created hybrid potatoes. We've got homogeneous parent lines, and with those homogeneous parent lines, we're able to combine the male and the female in a targeted, predictable, fast, and efficient way so that we can organize those 9 traits the way they should be. Well, you know, most people told us that that was completely impossible. You know, our friends told us we were crazy, so on every angle, we didn't feel very supported. But, you know, when backed into a corner, you have to prove yourself. And that's what we did. And we decided if we're going to prove ourselves, let's do it with something that has caused a dramatic impact to the planet. And that's late blight. Late blight is the single largest negative thing to impact potato farmers. Globally, it's a $6 billion issue. Yet, it hasn't been solved. Now, that's not to say that it hasn't tried. There is a potato variety there called Biotica that has 1 truly resistant gene to Phytophthora. Now, that potato took 50 years to develop. So we decided to make our technology demonstrated. And to do that, you can see here, we planted several fields of different types of potatoes. Ours being R2, and R2 stands for a 2-trait stack of resistances to Phytophthora. We did that in 2 years, and we were able to do it because of hybrid breeding. Okay, enough about genetics, let's talk about the product. Like I said in the past, potatoes are planted from tubers. Normally, to plant a hectare of potatoes, you need 2,500 kilos of tubers. But if your delivery system is seeds, 25 grams will plant that same hectare. This tube right here on this table has enough seeds in it to equal the tuber volume of a 20-foot container. Imagine the differences that's going to make on the planet on so many levels. You don't have to store the tubers in a refrigerated area if you're in a good environment. If you're in Africa, you don't need an extra house. We don't need roads or big trucks running over the roads. We don't need ships. We simply give the seed in that tube to the mailman. And the seeds aren't contaminated. They're healthy. And we can ensure that with lots of ways. And we don't have to deal with multiplication issues that tubers are dealing with. Typically speaking, one tuber is going to create 10 copies per year. And that means that it takes a long time to create a scale-up model of any new variety. At minimum 8 years to produce 100 million tubers. With seeds, however, we can make 25 million clean copies per year. And over the course of 18 months, we can produce 250 million tubers. That's a big change. And if we can target the breeding to the right needs in the environment, we can get the product there fast. Speaking of that, in Africa, and to kind of bring this back around to why we're here, the countries that plant potatoes typically have quite low yields, significantly lower than what we're used to in Europe. And the Salenta project is not just something that worked in a greenhouse. It's something that works in the fields in Africa. These yields, for example, are from Zimbabwe. And you can see that we've effectively tripled local yields. And this is something with continued improvement, local adaptation, and focused breeding, we hope we can enhance even further. At Salenta, we're unlocking the true potential of potatoes. I really appreciate the attendance today. I'm looking forward to being here for the rest of the Congress. And if you have any questions, please come and see me afterwards. Thank you.
And I'd like to invite our panelists back on stage. What an inspiring story, Charles. Thank you very much for sharing. It's always such a great joy to see something that we've already used for so many years and to be transforming that to actually a superfood and to have a whole new perspective of something that we already use. It's like we don't need to invent a new wheel. We already have a wheel and that works very well. Let's just make more use of that. Thank you. And Jane, thank you very much for your presentation too. I think it's incredibly inspiring that a bank who is so predominantly active in the food and agricultural industry also is trying to make its contribution, especially with the project that you've mentioned at the end of your presentation to enhance biodiversity. I mean, as Aldrich mentioned it just yesterday, this UN report has alarmed us that 1 million species from the 5 million species in the world, 1 million, 1/5 of all species in the world are endangered, which is shocking, and we really need to rethink our entire way of living in our economies. And getting back to the finance of things, and your example is really good in how to mobilize farmers to improve that, because already farmers are usually cultivating the land, already generating a lot of positive effects for us, for the community, but are not being paid a price for that. And if they get a reduction in the price they have to pay for their debts, and that's an amazing thing. And I was wondering, Martin, can you help me to envision what kind of a transition do farmers need to make to become more involved in the whole circular agriculture? Does it take a lot of financial investment for them? Is that a difficult step to take?
Yeah, actually, it requires an investment, but it also comes in place of the standard investments they have. They invest now a lot in technology, a lot in the resources, fertilizers, feed, which become more and more scarce, so more and more expensive. So yeah, it's an investment, but it's an investment in the future rather than an investment in today's production. And on the counter side of that investment should be an earning perspective. And the earning perspective is also within the stability, the variation, the diversity. If you're producing if you're using all the biomass to produce products, then you have more products on the market. So that's your earning perspective. If you produce manure as a product rather than a waste, then you can get money for your manure, which is a waste. If you can produce, for instance, the sugar beets in the Netherlands, they're so focused on producing sugar in the beets, but they forgot that in the leaves to produce the sugar, it's full of proteins. And we have very expensive animal feed based on proteins. but we're not using the sugar beet leaves to do that. So for a sugar beet farmer, bringing the leaves to the animal feed industry is a new earning model. And for the dairy farmer, having feed from sugar beet leaf proteins is much cheaper than having feed from soybean proteins. So
and better for the planet. No transportation across oceans.
Yeah, and to come to Jan, Jan said 1/3 of the biomass that we're producing is being lost when it's already food. But another 1/3 of the biomass that we're producing is never becoming food, is already wasted in the, at the farm level. So, and that's not wasteless biomass, but we have to think further.
That's a potential to be unlocked. And I'd like to go to you, Kees, because you're of course working in the economics of animal production. And if we look at Italy, the quality of products are very high, and usually also consumers are guided through labels. If you can also go further from what Martin said, but also how do you think, what role can consumers play in this? And do you think labeling these type of transparency issues would benefit? Would it work? And would people be willing to pay a higher price?
Well, to answer that question, it's not easy because, of course, as Martin also said before, investments by farmers are needed to convert to circular agriculture. So subsidies are in place to stimulate farmers to change over to new production systems, and they are needed. So public money is needed to have this done, to this transition phase to new agriculture. But afterwards, the market, of course, then after this period of transition, the market should again take over, and then the problem comes, of course, do consumers, are they willing to pay for a better product and a higher environmental compatible product? And then many consumer research indicates that in particular when we have economic crisis, it's not very, the willingness to pay is not very high. At the same time, then, what you said, labels are very important to create segments in the market. An overuse of labels on food products creates confusion. That happens also in many markets in Europe and in the rest of the world if we overuse labels. But at the same time, there are segments of consumers very much, and there is an increase of a part of the consumers to know more what is behind the product. That's really in the last 10, 20 years is increasing. Reading the labels, how the product is being produced, by whom is which farmer the product is produced. So direct selling becomes very important. Like Geert Wilm said, the face of the farmer is something really important for the consumer to see where it comes from, increasingly. So strategies going in the direction of direct selling is important. Of course, it cannot be substituting supermarkets. It cannot be substituting supermarkets completely, of course not. But it's a tendency where there is place for many people on the market, and it's not only supermarket that they are, of course, important, but so labeling is important.
Aldrich is wanting to chip in on this one as well. And just before you give your comment, can you please, you mentioned it before, and I think we cannot speak about agriculture in whichever country without pointing out subsidies and the mechanics behind it. Lack of subsidies in Africa, too much maybe subsidies here in Europe. You mentioned in the previous panel that maybe in the future there will be a more guided way of using subsidies. And I'm interested to hear your views on how would such a mechanism be able to work? How could you be able to target what are the goals that need to be stimulated, and in which way could subsidies be an assistance to that?
There are indeed many questions to the rescheduling of the current system of subsidies. Let's not forget that in many EU countries, the share of the subsidy element in the income of the farmers is still very, very high. Even in the Netherlands, where the productivity is high and the market incomes are relatively good, sometimes in some sectors the subsidy element of the income of the farmer is more than 50%. One thing is clear, in the common agricultural policy there will be less money available, so subsidies will go down. And if we do not want to have that impacting our farmers, it becomes clear that that income has to be earned into the market. Nowadays, consumers in Europe sometimes do not even spend more than 10% of their available income on food, which is very, very low if you compare it historically. This came down over the decades to now less than 10%. We think, at the ministry, but this is also, I think, broadly shared within our government, that indeed the market has to provide the farmers with their income. Now this goes for Europe, but this also should be a driving force in other countries. The same time, if we want to have certain changes taking place, we have to help farmers to make certain transitions. So if we want to make better use of manure, and a young farmer takes over the farm from his parents, or her parents, that farmer will probably need an investment sum to have new stable systems in place. So it is targeted support that we need for specific transitions that are mentioned quite well, and therefore in the European context we are now asked to all draft a national strategic plan on agriculture, so that more tailor-made measures for support to farmers are indeed taking place. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience before we go through our next presentations? Speak up, get engaged, be involved. Are there any farmers in the house? Any policymakers? Who are you? Who are you? Where do you come from? Let me get a microphone. Hi, you're an exhibitor. Who are you? Tell me what you're doing here and what your ideas about secure agriculture until now.
How did I know you were going to come pick me out of the group? Thank you, first of all, to the three of you for your input, and thank you for moderating. My name is Fabian Weinlander. I am originally Austrian. I'm an exhibitor here for Rethink Resource. We're a consultancy firm based in Zurich, and our specialty is supporting the producing and manufacturing industry to valorize side streams and byproducts. So what we do is we manage innovative ecosystems around side streams.
And do you do that nationally within Switzerland or more globally?
We focus on Europe.
Okay.
A lot of what work we do is based in Switzerland, and we're an interdisciplinary team. And I think that the input at this point, the reason why I'm actually here is because I'm also holding a talk on circular agriculture in about a month, and I wanted to get some input, which I've had, and I'm very grateful for. If you're going to ask me if I have a question, and I do actually have one. It's a topic that was mentioned very early on in the panel discussion at the beginning, and there's one thing that I'm really interested in, the logistics aspect of it. I find that that is something that we as well on our part, when we look at side streams and how different stakeholders get access and to side streams and how they're able to use it. The issue that we find, or that I find often, is that there's infrastructure missing to make sure that certain qualities and quantities stay in place so that these side streams can actually be brought somewhere to be used in a proper format and to be extracted of value, as such. So if you could elaborate a little bit on the infrastructure behind that, that's possibly missing, and the logistics that could be put in place to better that, that'd be great.
Fabian,
Thank
you.
Thank you for your comment,
Martin?
because logistics is extremely important to bring a product from place 1 to place B in a circular system in a good quality. Yeah, that's really a thing that we have to consider. When you want to make value of a certain biomass resource, you have to have enough volume, good quality, and a logistics that brings you from place A to place B. And I explained it already, in the success of the business of the agri-food system in the Netherlands is the logistics. Part of that is the logistics. So farmer cannot do it alone. Farmer needs business partners in the logistics. And there is also the win-win for the new business models. But that's really a new business, because it requires another logistic. It also requires another micro-logistic. But look how the logistics evolved in taxis, in food on demand, and all that kind of things. We can use the modern technology to improve the logistics as well. And may I allow one example, because I really love that one. The fashion made from
orange waste.
Orange
I think.
waste.
It's for
And I
really
really like that one, because most of the bio-based economy thinks that logistics is so difficult that they want to create a new biomass resource to produce, for instance, the new materials for making fashion. This shows, and I know that there is a lot of volume of orange waste in Sicily. This shows that if you organize it in a very good way, you really make money, and in the final end, the money in the orange farming is in producing fashion. In Holland, we have a young company, a startup company that's making, Mastic is the name, that's making fashion from cow shit.
Well, maybe that's a leap too far at this stage. I think it's good to start already with the orange peel. It's 70% orange waste. It's called Orange Fiber, and they have a collaboration with Ferragamo. Please go and check it out. Thank you very much for our panelists.
Hi, I'm very honored to talk here. I'm going to talk about acorns and about us being part of nature. Can you start my presentation? Or should I just click? Acorns have a story to tell, and therefore I'm nuts about acorns. Acorns are seeds of tree, oak. And all of Europe, oaks were seen as kings of the forest once. Once upon this time that we were part of the forest also, part of nature. We knew every day in everything we did that we were like the trees, and that the forest and nature gave us food, shelter, support in everything. And we were part of this circularity, not only in our minds, that we know that there's input and output and that we have to think over it again to make it circular. No, it was in us. We were part of this circularity. And therefore, this major change we talked about this morning is not only a rational thing, it's a cultural thing. It's something that's not only outside us, but also inside us. So the story I'm going to tell is about how can we become again part of this earth community, part of nature. My story has two parts, just like the lobes of an acorn. It has a rational part and also more the emotional part, the cultural part. This is our family farm. We just started it last year, and why I'm here and talking about acorns is because we were a prize-winning farm with a new idea. The farm is called Waldhuis, and it's not a traditional farm. We are not farmers from child on. We are new farmers, and we only have 5 hectares. Waldhuis is in the region of Twente, that's the eastern region of the Netherlands, and this is the people involved. This is the prize-winning team with the Nuts About Acorns idea, and we designed a way of eating acorns again and what it could do for the region. This is one of the things you can see in the region of Twente now, an oak standing alone in the midst of a field, and it's dying because it's in the way. So farmers find ways to get oak out of the way, and I understand it very well because it's very much, there's very much pressure. Twente region is a dairy region, and it's there's very much financial pressure because the high input farming takes high investments, and it's like a rat race between milk farmers, dairy farmers. Twente also is a region with high potential. If you ask anyone living there, they will say, "Oh, I'm proud, and now I'm going to live there in Twente." I meet a lot of people that say, "Oh, I lived there once, I was raised there." And if you ask farmers how they feel about the region, they say, "Well, it's such a beautiful region." And there are already a lot of oaks. What's the main idea? This is the rational part of my story of oak. The idea is we have to go to a circular agriculture. So, but that's a lot of steps to go. So what if we start with a natural source that's already there? Acorns from oaks. Binding us to the trees again. It's not a very strange idea to eat acorns because a lot of communities lived from acorns years and years. And also in Poland, in Greece, in Korea, they started or still eat acorns. So, but in the Netherlands it's not known. So we are developing the ways how to process it on a very small scale so everyone can do it at home, and also finding new technologies how to process it at a larger scale. We work together with a food designer. The idea is to product innovators. What products can you make of acorns? We already made very nice pasta and bread, and these acorn cookies are very nice too. So you can make out of acorns, you have to take the tannins out, and then you can make all kind of things you can make of flour. The nice idea of working with oaks and acorns is that you can bring the community back in the farming, because a lot of people like the landscape, they like the oaks, and so we organize activities at the farm to work on the acorns together. Also, that leads to landscape restoration, planting new oaks, because when we are using oaks only, then we are going farther in the way we are already taking of nature, so we have to grow new oaks. And growing new oaks as a landscape restoration in the Netherlands makes a basis for agroforestry too. When people start to buy acorn products, the acorns get a new value. And then the oaks are valuable again for the dairy farmers. So then we can involve dairy farmers, and they can plant trees on the they can use the trees they already have, and they can plant new trees on the side of their land. And there you get again valuing the more the landscape, and so it goes on in the circle and growing. So acorns can be a way to regenerate the landscape in the Netherlands, and it also has a lot of layers in it. There's a lot of potential because trees are good for climate adaptation, and oaks have very deep roots, so they're not really sensible for dry, and they can also be in wet circumstances, which are going to be more in the Netherlands, more wet periods and more dry periods. So as we already saw last year. They can be a source of food, that's the second layer. They can help commune to make a food community again. That's so important for this circularity because we lost our connection to our food. We lost, we don't remember food. A lot of Dutch people, and I think all of the world, are thinking most food is coming out of the supermarket and they don't have any idea where it grows. And that's a problem because you cannot feel what material you're made of. You're made of the materials you eat every day. So why shouldn't we be more aware of that? Acorns can grow the landscape. An oak is a very biodiverse species. There can be 400 other species around oaks, and that's only above ground. And we, of course, underneath in the soil, there's also a lot of biodiversity. Oaks can be a basis for agroecology, so stepping over new practices, and they storage carbon. Well, now I'm going to tell you something about the other part of oaks. Here you see some very old symbols connecting to oaks. We have, in Twente you see a lot of old oaks, and then you see a Mother Mary standing next to it. And what surprised me is that you see this natural leaves, the oak leaves, guirlandes next to Mother Mary, and you often see a stone. And it refers to the old knowing, the old roots in our culture that that Mother Mary was Mother Earth. Mother Earth as the great arms around you every day, everywhere where you were. And this is a symbol in our roots, and I think there are many more. And it refers also to circularity. The circle itself is a very old cultural symbol. It's a symbol of being one with nature, being one all. The circle we are in together is one. And I would invite you to feel how this circle feels in your body and how it connects to whatever you're doing, because we are breathing all the time, isn't it? So I would like to invite you to breathe in and out a few times. Being aware that with your breathing, you're connected to the outer world. We share the air in this room. We share the air all over the world. What we breathe in, we bring back. We get our oxygen from trees. And this simple fact of how we are connected with our breathing leads to my last point about a regenerative culture. Circularity is not a thing we can design by rational thinking only. Circularity is something that regenerates in ourselves. It's about circular patterns. And so we have to redesign our we have to refeel and redesign our social patterns, like how do we govern? Can we work together in cooperation? Can we share? Can we make an economy that shares? Can we be like the trees, knowing that there's place for everyone, and design an economy on that basis? That's what circularity is about. And that's what's asked for us. And the beauty is we can all start at once by our conscious breathing, oneness in and out, several times every minute, and growing our conscious in everything we do and say. So, thank you, and up to the next speaker.
Hello. Hello. I'm the last speaker, so don't worry, after me it's over. Yeah, you're still with me? I see some people going like, how many speakers do they have in Holland? Well, I'm from Belgium, so I'm a different country, so this is already a new thing. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucas de Man, and every time I go back to Belgium, my family asks me, what do you do? And then I tell them that I started a company New Heroes, but I'm also a TV host in the Netherlands, and I'm also a theater maker, and I'm also this. So they always, never understand who I am, so then I tell them I am a creator. That means that I professionally create, that means that I create and that I get paid to create in the ideal world, which is not always happening. But ideally, this is my job, so my mother sort of understands what I'm doing. Anyway, my company is called New Heroes. We are a professional creative company. That means that we are not a marketing company. We don't sell stories that we don't believe in. We only have creative professionals, from designers to video makers to artists that work with us. We are very with people instead of we keep them. Everybody in our company is freelance. We don't believe anymore that people should be stuck. What we do is three things. First of all, multidisciplinary storytelling, all disciplines, TV, radio, podcast, theater, exhibition, everything that tells a story to an audience, even if it's people from the food and bio-based industry. Second of all, creative concepts and execution. People ask us to think for them, with them, and we can also execute it. And last but not least, since 2 years, bio-based creations. That means that we make art and other creative possibilities out of bio-based materials. My story is the importance of good storytelling. That is very important. We can talk here amongst each other. You're all very well known about the circularity and about circular agriculture, but then common people, like ordinary people like me and the other Belgian people, we have no idea what's happening in the world. We need good storytelling and not only men in suits talking about the world. So, I'm going to give you 4 examples of projects we did involving agriculture and involving bio-based materials. First is called We Pigland, because in Dutch it's Wij Varkenland, which is WVL. Wij Varkenland means West Flanders, where I'm from. West Flanders has 3 times more pigs than people, including the people that are pigs. But the most important thing is we have pigs. So we did a huge project with video making, with installations, with the local communities that reached 20,000 people in West Flanders talking about the future of pig industry. But I also made a theater show called We Pigland about the industry of the farming. And this theater show was about a guy who returns back to his farm where he grew up. His brother took over the farm but went bankrupt because of the system, and now is working his own farm as somebody who's just getting paid by these big corporates. This show that gives a human face to the farmer has been in 5 different countries. We did it together with my little piglet called Ivo. Don't ask me why, but it's called Ivo. And for more than 20,000 farmers, we did this show for more than 15,000 non-farmers. This was the best way to get farmers and non-farmers talking about the next step. Why? Because sometimes you get scientists saying you have to do this and this, or you get people saying the farmers are to blame. And what do you see with the farmers? They retreat. They go like, people hate us, I'm just doing my job, I'm trying to survive. What we try to do as artists, because we're not helping anyone, we're not marketing anything, but we are about the human side of things. So that's what we showed. The farmers loved it because we gave words to the feelings they have. We talked about depression, we talked about, you know, being loyal to your family, we talked about innovation, how difficult it is, but within human words, human language. And media loves it because they love little piglets. The other thing we did is called the World Record Cookie Mosaic. This is the biggest cookie mosaic in the world. We made it in Haarlemmermeer, which is actually the community around Schiphol, the biggest airport in Holland. What we did is, there was a food festival, and they said, we want to promote local food with the farmers. But the farmers do not want to work with us because they feel like it's not about them. Can you think of something? So we said, yeah, sure, we can. And then we came up with the biggest cookie mosaic in the world. These are 20,000 cookies that were baked together only with local products, because you can bake together with more than 300 people, made together with more than 1,000 people. We made the world record, and then we distributed all the cookies in whole of Haarlemmermeer, and they were all eaten. I went to, with every cookie I went along to see if somebody ate the cookie or not, because otherwise you do not get the world record. The great thing is, you get people together, you teach them about local products, you show them what is happening. The farmers and the bakers and the people get to know each other in a cool thing, a world record. They get the record, which is always great, proud, and of course all the media loves it. Learning about local products. The other thing is called Grow. I did this for the Rabobank. People of the Rabobank are here as well. I was the artist in residence of the Rabobank the first time the Rabobank did this. So instead of buying art and saying, we are good for the artist, they said, you know, let's get artists into the bank. And we got a special deal. We could be everywhere. So no meeting we were not allowed. We didn't go to all the meetings because, you know, who likes meetings? But what we did is we interviewed the bankers about the future of banking. And then we understood that the bank is completely changing, going from this to way more this. So what we did is, and I'm going to show you how big it is, we constructed this man figure that is 9 meters by 9 meters wide, and that consists only of mycelium. I don't know if you know mycelium. Mycelium is completely bio-based product. So you take hennep or another grass product, you put some mycelium in it, which is fungi, right? And in 2 weeks' time, you go from the one picture to the other picture. You grow it in 2 weeks' time, and you can grow mushrooms out of it. So we said, you know, this is good for the environment because it's completely bio-based. If you don't need it anymore, you put it back into the countryside and becomes manure, and you keep the CO2, which is very important. Normally, when we are producing, a lot of CO2 goes up in the air. Here, you can actually keep the CO2, which is also good for the environment. So we said, together, all the bankers, with their children, they can grow these pieces of mycelium, and we will build this statue together. Like this, you see, you can have all kinds because you can dry them. They stay like this inside for years. They stay good. And the great thing is, you can grow mushrooms out of it. We worked 1 year on this to make sure that we can actually manipulate exactly the product the way we want it. And we built this statue. And the great thing was, the complete statue is built with bricks made by employees of the bank. It's completely dried, and the hands keep on harvesting the mushrooms. So the hands give mushrooms back the whole time. So these hands were full of mushrooms. Every day you can harvest the mushrooms, and you can make risotto. And I tasted yesterday the risotto in Milan. It's amazing, you know. So this is art, this is learning, this is working together, and this is also making sure that we give a new message. Last project, this is also what you see there on the wall. For the Dutch Design Week, we are making a completely 100% bio-based pavilion. Why? Because the bio-based industry is working behind. People do not understand it. The building industry, which is huge, they don't trust the agricultural industry. They think, oh yeah, it's not, you know, we're not going to trust it. So we said, why don't we make a pavilion that is completely bio-based? The walls, the roof, everything, which has never been done before. Now we know why, because it's difficult, but you know, fuck it. So we continue. This is completely full of bio-based materials like bio-based plastics, like mycelium, like different kinds of wood that are nice. And the great thing is, within the pavilion, we're going to showcase all the companies that are working on bio-based products. We're going to have actors, real actors, that are giving guided tours, which makes it a little bit more animated than people, actually producing the things. We're going to make a video about how you can grow a new world, and we're going to make sure it's on national television as well. This is going to be a Dutch Design Week, and at the same time you have the Creativity World Forum, which makes 2,500 of the most amazing creative people coming together in Brabant, which you just saw, together. Why am I telling you this? Because I believe that still everyone is living on their own little island, the agricultural people there, and then you have the science sort of interfering, and then you have but we forget always about the artists, about the creatives. We are the ones who can tell stories. We are the ones who don't want to sell anything. We are not the marketing people. We don't have a product to sell or religion to sell. The only things we do is that we're just a little bit crazy enough to make something that nobody talked about us. And when we were a child, people, we got bullied because we were the weird kids. Now we are the one that are standing on this stage. So, this is too personal, it's okay. My daddy still loves me. So, why is good storytelling important? Because it's on the human level and human language instead of scientific bullshit. Because imagination is very important. People, their imagination is the most powerful source we have. You will never forget this huge statue that is completely full of mushrooms, that you actually ate the mushrooms off. You will never forget that. When you have just a mycelium wall, you don't even notice that it's mycelium. Why? Because the media loves it. You get way more attention in the media. Then again, the farmers are not doing well, or the farmers are stealing money. And because people can get involved, instead that you have to be very highly qualified to actually touch something. Now, if you want to go to a farm, you have to get 3 showers, change your clothes, and then maybe you can see something. So because of the art pieces, you have a real participation. I have 30 seconds left. Are there any questions? No? Thank you very much for listening, and now it's over.